Hello all and welcome back to my channel. Today we will be discussing something a little bit more different. Rather than talking about exotic and expensive watches, I will be discussing about the most affordable or cheaper way to go into vintage watches. Specifically, it will be about talking about the vintage seiko watches. You don't need a Rolex or Omega or Universal Genius to go vintage. My own advice is that just go the affordable and cheaper route and trying it out before you put your wallet down and spending on something more expensive. You do not know whether you're gonna love it or hate it, so do not spend around a few $100s on some vintage watch. Just spend a few, maybe $40 to $50 and see whether it's your cup of tea. The market for vintage seiko watches varies largely from a few $100s to a mere $40 to $50. What I have here with me are the most basic of seiko watches, the Seiko 5. The important thing to know before stepping into vintage watches is that regardless of its price, it is very important that you know what you're looking at. It is very important, I can say that again, that you know what the movement is and you know the originality of the watch. If you do not even know what type of movement or what type of mechanism is running inside, it's best that you do your research first before putting down your wallet to purchase any watches in mind. Vintage seiko watches are famous for their, or infamous for their Franken watches, which in simple terms means that it's a mix of match of parts to make the watch work. This is very common in countries such as Philippines and India, which is the most common place for you to purchase vintage seikos. That's why, in my advice, it's important that you know what type of movement it is. For instance, the Seiko 5s are mainly run by its 7009 movement or the 7S26 workhorse movement generally. However, I personally feel that for a mere $35 per watch, it keeps good time and it's a good stepping stone before you get into the more expensive vintage stuff. Here are some vintage Seikos which I've gotten locally. Some I've gotten with good condition, and while there are some which weren't in any working condition. It is important that you know a little bit of hands-on in terms of basic watch making or watch polishing and buffing to make sure the watch looks good once you've gotten it. They are the perfect watches to begin your journey into affordable watch collection. Don't be paranoid over Franken watches in Seiko's 5, as a lot of parts are interchangeable between different movements and you do not get something as bad as what people say on the internet. I've seen a lot of reviews online saying that, oh, do not get watches from India, do not get watches from Philippines or what, there are a lot of purist watch lovers which has dig into casual collections on buying vintage Seikos off eBay, saying that they are pure crap watches and not worth the purchase. That's not the case for me, as most importantly, for my advice is do not purchase a watch with a repainted dial. They are very obvious as the painting quality is very bad. They are not specifically fake, but just bad quality refurbished unit. Hence, if you're looking for a Seiko 5, get one with a good original dial and you are good to go. In some cases, it's important to have basic understanding on how the watch works, as you might need to do some tiny adjustment inside the movement or do some lubrication work to get the watch moving. These are the basics for you to try out vintage watch collecting. It ain't rainbow and sunshine, as you will face issues such as a deteriorating rubber seal or the crown being loose or some other mechanical issue as well. You need to know how to pinpoint the issue, find a professional watchmaker to fix it, or do it yourself in the end of the day. There are a lot of tutorials on YouTube to guide you along the way as well, and that's where I mainly took up the hobby of fixing up watches. If you do not have the patience, do not do vintage watch. It's really a big hassle. There are some moments in my time of collecting that I wish that I would just stick to a reliable Swiss-made watch and not step into the world of vintage watchmaking. It's a nice collection in terms of affordability, as you get a wide variety of watches in your collection, and in the end of the day, they are workhorse movement. It's gonna last you a lifetime if you do not really destroy the watch along your journey. Hence, I do really recommend, if you are very interested in vintage watch, go with a vintage Seiko, try out the hobby before you really commit more into vintage watch collecting.